There's a word Korean children learn before they ever learn to read. It's not please. It's not thank you. It's not even a color or a number. It's called Nunchi, and it's been quietly shaping some of the most emotionally resilient, socially capable kids in the world for over 2,000 years. Now, I know what you're thinking. You've heard about Korean parenting, the studying, the pressure, the hagwons. You probably picture a 6-year-old doing calculus at midnight. But here's the thing that's not what Korean parents are doing in the first 5 years. What they're actually doing is something completely different, something that developmental science keeps pointing back to over and over as foundational. And today, I want to show you exactly what that looks like and what it means for your kid's brain. By the end of this, you'll have 5 real practical tools that cost nothing and take minutes. Okay, real talk for a second. How many of you have stood at a playground and quietly panicked? Some kid clearly just turned 3 starts spelling words out loud, and you're standing there thinking, my kid just ate bark off a tree. I hear this all the time. Parents messaging me at 11 o'clock at night, is my kid behind? Am I doing this wrong? That anxiety you feel? That quiet, am I enough? It makes complete sense because we live in a culture that tells us constantly that earlier is better. Flashcard sets for babies, reading apps for toddlers, and all of it lands on parents like a low-level alarm that just never turns off. You're at a birthday party, and another parent mentions their kid is already doing 100-piece puzzles. None of that pressure is coming from a bad place. It's coming from love. You want your kid to thrive. That instinct is right. The direction it gets pointed, that's where the science gets interesting. Because here's what keeps showing up in developmental research over and over. The thing that actually builds a strong brain in the early years isn't academic content, it's connection. And that's exactly what Nunchi is built on. Uni Hong, a journalist who spent years studying this concept, describes Nunchi as the art of sensing what people are thinking and feeling and responding appropriately. In Korea, it's called eye measure, the ability to read a room, to sense what someone needs before they say it. When you look at what Nunchi requires neurologically, it maps almost perfectly onto what scientists call social cognition, the capacity to understand other minds, to regulate your own emotions while staying attuned to someone else's. These are not soft skills. These are measurable brain functions. And research consistently shows that these capacities, built early, are associated with stronger outcomes, academically, socially, and emotionally. Here's where the neuroscience gets really good. Harvard University's Center on the Developing Child has spent decades studying what actually builds brain architecture in early childhood. And one of the most consistently supported findings is something they call serve and return. Picture a tennis match, except instead of a ball, what's going back and forth is a look, a sound, a gesture. Your baby babbles. You respond. They point at something. You follow their gaze and name it. They hand you a block. You take it and hand it back. That back and forth, that simple, unremarkable exchange is how the brain builds its foundational architecture. Connection by connection. Interaction by interaction. Dr. Jack Shonkoff at Harvard has described serve and return as among the most well-supported findings in all of early development. And when I looked at what Korean parents are actually doing in those early years, the rituals, the habits they are, serve and return machines. They've just been doing it for 2,000 years without calling it that. Now, let me give you a real picture, a before and after. Here's what a lot of us, and I include myself, do at dinner. Kids at the table, TV on, phones out, mentally somewhere else entirely. I'm not judging. I have done this more times than I can count. But developmental research points to this clearly. The conversational language a child hears in real back-and-forth interaction is consistently linked to vocabulary growth and brain architecture. Keyword, conversational, not background TV, not a learning app. Back and forth, present, responsive, In Korean family culture, there's a word for the daily shared meal. Chipbap. Chipbap. It literally means home-cooked meal, but it means something much bigger than that. It's the idea that the table is sacred, not because of what's on it, but because of who's at it and who's paying attention. During chipbap, screens go away. Adults ask kids questions not to quiz them, but because they actually want to hear the answer. Kids watch adults talk, negotiate, disagree, repair, and quietly, in those children's brains, something is being built. They're learning to read the room. They're building Nunchi, not as a lesson, as a meal. There's another Korean concept I want to tell you about, and this one genuinely moved me. It's called jang, and there is no direct English translation, none. The closest you can get is the invisible glue of relationship. It's not exactly love. It's the slow accumulation of shared moments over time. The routine hug before school, every single morning. The inside joke that only the two of you get. The specific way you say goodnight that hasn't changed in 3 years. Here's what attachment research, building on foundational work from Mary Ainsworth, and decades of follow-up studies consistently shows. Children don't need perfect parents. They need predictable ones. A parent who shows up, who repairs after conflict, who is reliable in the small, daily moments. That pattern, not perfection, but presence and predictability, is consistently associated with secure attachment across study after study. Jung is predictability made into a daily practice. Small, repeated, consistent. That secure base is the foundation everything else gets built on. Okay, I want to talk about one more concept. Kibun. Kibun means mood, emotional atmosphere. In Korean culture, you don't just ask, "How was your day?" You read the room first. You check the kibun before you say a word. Picture this. Your kid comes home from school. The door opens. Backpack hits the floor. They shuffle to the kitchen. They don't look at you. What do? Most of us go, "How was school? How was your day? Did you eat your lunch?" But what Korean parents tend to do first is nothing. They notice. They read the kibun. And then they respond to what they see. Rough day lands completely differently than, "How was school?" when a kid is slumped over the counter. Research by Dr. John Gottman suggests that children whose parents name their emotional state before problem solving tend to show stronger emotional literacy over time. Not because of any special technique, because they feel seen. Kibun is just a word for that, and it costs exactly $0. Now 5 practices, real ones, starting today. Not programs, not products, just shifts in how you show up. The first one I'm calling Nunchi moments. It takes 30 seconds. Before you walk into a room where your kid is playing, pause. Just outside the doorway, one breath. Notice the energy. Are they focused? Frustrated? Deep in something? See them before they see you. Then, let them know you noticed. Looks like that puzzle is giving you a hard time. You seem really into that. You're not solving anything. You're not praising. You're just seeing them. Research on contingent responsiveness, responding to what a child is actually expressing, consistently links this attunement to stronger emotional regulation. You don't need a curriculum. You just need a pause. 30 seconds, once a day. The second practice is the jip-bop ritual. 1 screen-free meal a day. That's it. Not all day. Not every meal. Just 1. Phones face down. TV off. For the duration of 1 meal. It doesn't have to be home-cooked. Takeout on the kitchen floor counts. What matters is that phones are down. Someone asks a question and actually waits for the answer. That's serve and return at the dinner table. Research on joint attention consistently points to it as one of the strongest early predictors of language development and social cognition. You're not just having dinner, you're building a brain. The third practice is Jong anchors. 3 small rituals. A specific way you say good morning. A specific thing when they leave for school. A specific way you say good night. Same every day. Small enough that it never gets skipped. Because children's brains in these early years are building internal working models. Mental maps of whether the world is safe, whether people are reliable, whether they matter. Harvard's research consistently points to the reliable availability of a trusted caregiver as one of the most protective factors in early childhood. Your Jong anchor doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be there. Tuesday, after a long day. There. After an argument. When you're exhausted. Still there. That consistency is the architecture. The fourth practice is the kibun check. When your child gets home before you ask anything, just look. 1 breath. Read the kibun. If they look fine, hey, how was it? If something happened, lead with that. Rough one? Then stop talking and wait. That silence, the space you leave after you name what you see, is where children decide whether it's safe to tell you the real thing. Research on emotion coaching consistently suggests that acknowledgement before advice leads to stronger emotional vocabulary in children over time. The fifth practice is 같이. It means together. It means doing things side by side, not for your kid, with your kid. Cooking together, even when it's slower. Folding laundry together, even when their help makes more work. Walking somewhere with no destination. The goal isn't efficiency. The goal is 같이. When you chop vegetables and your toddler hands you things and you say, "Thank you, chef." When you read together and they ask a question that has nothing to do with the book. That is joint attention. And decades of developmental science consistently identify it as one of the most powerful early predictors of language, executive function, and social cognition. Not because of what you're doing together, because you're doing it together. Now, I want to say something honest before we close. Korean parenting culture is not perfect. No culture is. There are real conversations happening inside Korea right now about what to keep and what to leave behind. The academic pressure that comes later, the expectations that can crowd out a child's sense of self, those are real. But before all of that enters the picture, in the first 5 years, what Korean parents tend to prioritize is something developmental science keeps confirming. Not academics. Not structured achievement. Connection. Attunement. Presence. Nunchi isn't a curriculum. Jung isn't a program. 집밥 isn't a technique. They're just names for things we already know matter. What those names do, what's actually useful about them, is give us a way to talk about the invisible work of parenting. The work that doesn't show up on a milestone chart. The work that looks like dinner and pausing in a doorway and saying goodnight the same way every night, even when you're exhausted. Research from Harvard's Center on the Developing Child keeps returning to the same finding. What children need isn't a perfectly optimized learning environment. It's a responsive one, not a parent who gets it right every time. A parent who shows up, who repairs, who is reliably, imperfectly, genuinely there. Attachment researchers have described this as good enough parenting, not a low bar, but an honest one. This pattern, presence, attunement, repair, is consistently associated with secure attachment and stronger developmental outcomes across many populations. Not guaranteed, not without nuance, but meaningful, consistently meaningful. So here's what I want you to take away. You don't need to buy anything. You don't need to download anything. Nunchi moments pause before you enter the room. Jip bop ritual. One screen-free meal where someone actually listens. Jong anchors 3 small rituals that show up even on the hard days. Kibun check, read the room before you ask a question. 같이, do things together. Slowly, messily, on purpose. That's it. That's the whole thing. Your kid's brain isn't waiting for the right app. It's not waiting for the perfect preschool. It's not waiting for you to have it all figured out. It's waiting for you. For the moment you pause in the doorway. For the dinner where phones stay down. For the good night that's always the same, in the same voice, in the same order. Nunchi isn't a skill you drill into a child. It's a relationship you build with one. Jung isn't an outcome you achieve. It's the ordinary Wednesday morning you don't skip. I am not raising a test score. I am raising a human being. And the most powerful brain-building tool I have is already right here. It's my presence, and exactly that, is enough. Drop a number in the comments 1 through 5 for the practice that feels most like you. I read every single one. Next week, we're going deep on something I've been wanting to cover for months. Why the way you respond when your kid melts down in the first 30 seconds shapes their brain more than almost anything else you do. The neuroscience on this is remarkable, and the answer is going to surprise you. I'll see you then.